So all right everybody, and in this one I'm going to be explaining the basic overview of SQL and relational databases. So there are two types of databases actually, NoSQLs and SQLs. SQLs are actually relational databases and are the most popular. For example, Postgres, MySQL, and the rest. Example of NoSQL databases, we have like MongoDB. So anyways, SQL databases. So a basic table in an SQL database looks like this. So as you can see, it has ID, name, PIN, and balance. So for example, we're just looking at like a bank perspective here, and probably this is the user account table. So the ID probably can be the account number. Okay, it can be orderly or unorderly, just like the account numbers. We have the name, Jim Murray, Mary Jane Spider-Man, and the rest. We have their pins and their balance. So this first row here is called a column. So ID, name, pin, and balance, those are columns. And this is a row. We know we have this user account table, right? So probably this is how your bank does it, I guess. But you may be wondering, how do they store our transactions? Okay, so we cannot have a colon here for transaction date, transaction name, transaction this, transaction that. So what they are going to do is they are going to create another table that are going to house those transactions. So it's going to look something like this. So we have transaction table, and as you can see, this column here is highlighted in red, and this says user ID. So this user ID actually points to this user account table. It has its own unique ID anyways. So you can see 1, 2, 3, and the IDs are unique. Also, I wanted to point out there's something called a primary key while using like a table, and in this case the primary keys are the ID. So the primary key is basically unique to every row. So Jane Mary cannot have the same primary key with Mary Jane, so it's unique to every piece of data in the table. So oh well, now you can see the user ID is pointed to the primary key of this table. So the first one you're going to see here is 0001203, and that is the ID of Jimmy. So that's the user ID. So now you can see that it's pointing to these two transactions. Probably Jimmy withdrew 1000 with probably the bank as Zenith, and maybe he deposited 3000 with UBA, if you understand what I mean. So that is basically the approach I'm talking about here, where two pieces of data are connected to this one person with the user ID. Hopefully you understand what I mean. As you can see, we have amount and the bank. You can have as much things, as much columns, as much details, probably like transaction date, or probably in the user account table you can have like a profile picture or something like that. Anyways, you get the point. So this type of relationship now is called a one-to-many relationship. So we have one row that is pointing to many transactions, if you understand what I mean, and we do that using something called a foreign key. So in this case now, the foreign key is this column here, highlighted in red. So the user ID is the foreign key that is pointing to this primary key over here. And also remember, the primary key, that's the ID, has to be unique to every item. Just to be clear, I want you to get something in your mind, and note that the transactions are keeping track of the users, and it's not the users that are keeping track of the transactions. I want you to rewind that, hear it again if you didn't understand it, until it sinks in. Okay, with all this aside, I want to go into what exactly we do with Django models. To create a table in Django, you're going to create it as a class. So right now we have class user account, and in this user account we're going to have variables. As you can see, we have a pin here, and the pin is equal to an integer model type, and the name equals to a text model type. I'll be showing you how to make all these model types, but basically just get the general overview. So the class is the table, and these names are the columns. So when you're creating like a row, like adding data to the table, you're going to be passing in all these things. Some of them can be compulsory, some of them might not be compulsory. I'll be showing you how to do all that. Anyways, we have created that table, and the next one is the transactions table. So you just do a class transaction, and in here we're going to have those model types. And yeah, just to close it, you're going to see the last one here is user ID, and it's going to connect to a user account model type. So it won't be a text, it won't be a float, it won't be an integer. It's going to be a user account type. Hopefully you get the point. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.